There we go. From the Banner offices along the Inner Harbor, it is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano and John Meoli live on a Monday in May. We are here to talk about the Baltimore Orioles and a terrible, very bad, no good weekend up in New York. We're going to talk about everything that has gone wrong in this series against the Yankees so far. All that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Toyota knows your day doesn't slow down, so your vehicle shouldn't either. From the efficient Corolla and always-ready Camry to the adventurous RAV4 and spacious Grand Highlander, plus many models available with all-wheel drive, Toyota builds a lineup that shows up for every kind of driver. And right now, great financing and lease options are available to qualified customers, making it a perfect time to find the one that fits you. Find a great deal today at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. All right, John, before we talk about the bad, we are going to talk about the good, as in 3 good reviews that people have written on Apple Podcasts.
Wow.
This first one coming from Snore8560, who says, keep up the great coverage. I continue to love this show, and you guys do a great job. Quick question, is Pete Alonso a huge bust? His bat is slow and appears unable to hit a fastball anymore. Well, I'll tell you, Snore8560, Pete Alonso is coming off a pretty good weekend in New York. His return to New York has brought him a couple homers, brought him some extra base hits. It seems like he is getting back on track, and he actually has a 108 OPS plus, which is better than one Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah. I talked to Pete Alonso a little bit last week. I'm probably going to write it at some point, but basically asked him why he wasn't pulling the ball in the air anymore, and he said those are happy accidents, and all he's trying to do is hit the ball hard somewhere or walk, and he considers either of those two things an opportunity to flip a coin. And when you flip a coin, either good things happen or bad things happen. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't care as long as he's doing one of those two things. And on its surface, that is okay if it plays out that way. But I think there's a little bit of growing amount of evidence now that he is pulling the ball a little bit more. And I think his bat is speeding up a little bit. I think that might have been a little bit of an anomaly early in the season, but it doesn't really matter if everything else is going terribly around him, which we will get to.
Yeah, his numbers do look a little bit better as we stand here. And his hard hit percentage is at this point the highest in his career in a single season, 56.7% according to StatCast. But as you mentioned, not pulling the ball on the air as much. He is hitting the ball hard. His barrels are down a little bit, down to 11%. So he just has to continue to make good contact and try to pull the ball over the fence.
Yeah.
Another review coming from Mark H. Orioles says, very enjoyable show. This is one of my go-to Orioles-related podcasts that I listen to. It's reasonable light and to a certain extent mirrors the rhythm and nuances of the baseball season. Good interplay amongst the guests who are knowledgeable journalists in an era journalism isn't what it once was. I think journalism is still what it is if you are looking in the right places. The amount of outlets covering the average baseball team, the average sports team, or the amount of outlets, media outlets in general, has utterly ballooned and blossomed. But there is still great journalism out there. I think, John, later today, people at the Banner are going to be huddling around to watch the Pulitzer Prizes being handed out or being announced, at least. A reminder that the Banner is a Pulitzer Prize winning organization.
Yes.
So there is still good journalism out there. You just have to know where to find it.
This is a good place to start.
This is a good place to start. And then another one coming from Mike M128 says, let me tell you something about the Banner baseball boys. They shop at Marshall's, which is to say they know a lot about good deals, and a free podcast that regularly dives deep into the happenings of the Baltimore Orioles. Buddy, that's a heck of a deal. Thank you so much, Mike M. Really appreciate it.
Agreed.
All right. John, we're going to talk about baseball, I swear, but also you have to give your review of Spotlighters Theater's production of You Can't Take It With You, which I played Tony Kirby in. What did you think?
I enjoyed it. It was 5 stars.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the dynamics. I enjoyed the message, which is that, money isn't everything. I thought you delivered. I don't want to spoil the show. It's probably 100 years old at this point. So I don't
90.
know. I don't know how many people who are in the market for it don't know what happens. I didn't when I went into it. So I guess I could have been spoiled, but I enjoyed the message of, family over everything. I enjoyed,
much like Fast and Furious.
Exactly. And that's what, that's why I went family, the familia, salute me familia. So I also enjoyed the concept of and this is, I feel like, of the moment that it was written, and also applicable, although it's a larger umbrella than it was when it's just like, we know what's the good and the bad is just business. Like it was always referred to as just like business.
Yes.
It's like the business of money. And it's like, there's, that is still broadly true. And it's just, there's other ways to harvest said money. But back then it was just like, you either did business with a capital B and made a ton of money and were unhappy, or you did not.
Yeah.
And
the bad guy in this play, not to spoil anything, is Wall Street. It's just Wall Street existing.
Yeah, just existing.
And it's like, that was 90 years ago. And guess what? A lot has changed in the world, but not a lot in terms of the bad guy in this show has.
Yeah. So how did they have money if the grandpas just stopped working 40 years ago? That's a great
question. We did an audience talk back yesterday, and we all struggled to find out. Grandpa worked on Wall Street, is what we think.
So he just made his bag and took it with him.
Made his bag, took it with him.
Didn't pay his taxes.
Didn't pay his income tax. Got a brownstone in New York. Ended up housing all of his family members and anybody who wanted to come in. It was just an interesting time too. It was middle of the Depression. The Wall Street crash was 7 years before.
Yeah.
Before World War II. It was just a crazy show. If you have the chance to see it, come see it. It's a very fun show.
I was gonna say, I think there's some people on my street that are like that, and just house the whole family, but I don't know if they worked on Wall Street before.
And I hope they pay their income tax. All right.
You could probably get away with not at this point.
Yeah.
I did.
Good. All right. Don't say that on air.
They're very complicated, but we got it done.
We've been stalling for so long, I feel like, John, because we don't want to talk about the bad. And the bad is this Baltimore Orioles team right now. This Orioles team is 4 games under 500. They are in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. You wrote about on thebanner.com, where people can subscribe $1 for 6 months, about this being a measuring stick series, this being a time for the Orioles stars to step up, this being a time for the Orioles to show that they can compete in the AL East. And I'll tell you, John, if this is a measuring stick test, the Orioles are failing that test so far.
Yeah. And on its most basic level, they're really just measuring that they can't beat the Yankees right now, that they can't go to Yankee Stadium and beat the Yankees right now. I think the follow-up question is like, okay, which measurements do you want to present yourself for that you can favorably, measure up? And I don't know that there's an answer to that question at this point. I don't know what I think this has been a persistent thing. I think probably for the entirety of the season. I think if you had to rank the things that the Orioles were good at, you'd probably put the bullpen first.
Probably 16th in MLB in reliever ERA.
Yeah, but I think that's also like skewed by how. I think if you put the core group of guys that they count on in there, the guys that you use, everyone's gonna have like a terrible 7th reliever who comes in and gets shelled and goes back down to the minors. Like those, you kind of just take for what it is. But I don't even know why I'm talking about this part. All I wanted to say was that I don't know what is the strength of this team. I don't think they know. I don't think there is a strength of this team right now.
No,
I think the strength of this team, honestly, and we've said it a million times, is, their stick-to-itness. And you messaged me about this podcast at like 2:30 yesterday when they were losing 3-1, and it was like once you sent it, I was like, they're probably gonna come back and win this game now, and like
they came back
and we'll be sitting there being like, if they win tonight, it's a split, and it'll be like a discouraging, acceptable series. And then they didn't give themselves that chance, and I think that's kind of part and parcel for what's happened the whole season. Is like, I wouldn't have bet on them to like win that game late or come back, but like they would have had a chance. And I think the same way that we felt a lot, around this time last year of like losing all these games, all you're doing is preventing yourself from having a chance later. It's not like, if you're creating too big of a gap, it doesn't really matter what happens as you're trying to close that gap, just because it's a big gap. I don't think that this is that conversation. I don't think this is that team. I don't think this is that circumstance. I do think it'll be a very big gut check moment if they get swept and have to figure this out. But to do that, it's not like let's get this call back to 500. Like they just kind of have to figure out like what are we going to be good at, and let's be good at it.
Yeah, they don't have an obvious strength right now, and the scores of the 3 games have been pretty lopsided. They've been outscored 25-9 in those 3 games. They have a chance to get one back tonight, as you mentioned. It's a wraparound series. But I look at 3 major issues right now with this team, and this is to put the offense aside, which we have spent multiple podcasts talking about the offense, and we'll talk about them at some point. But what is currently bedeviling this team? The pitching has regressed, starting with the starting pitching.
Yeah.
The defense is still a massive issue on this team. And the Orioles are still having problems with lefties. If we could pinpoint one spot in the offense, we'll do that. Craig Alvarez went with an all-righty lineup in Sunday's game, gave Gunnar Henderson the day off. Didn't really work. They scratched out 3 runs on some soft contact, but weren't able to score enough to win that ball game. Let's break this down individually, and let's start with the pitching. The starting pitching right now is 25th in Major League Baseball in ERA, and it's placing a burden on the bullpen, which has looked good. But when you are currently 16th in baseball in innings pitched by starters, you are placing an extra burden on your bullpen to be great. And they're kind of bowing under that pressure. 16th in ERA by their bullpen, 25th by starter ERA. It starts with the injuries. Trevor Rogers hit the injured list with an illness. Dean Kramer obviously is going to be out for a long time. But beyond that, you're just not getting good enough pitching from your 4 top starters.
Yeah, and the issue is that, this was all predicated on let's not have to go do all the things they've had to do. We talked about not needing Brandon Young and Cade Povich starts early in the season. They've started a bunch of games so far. We had a conversation about who the first prospect to debut would be, and the answer was Trey Gibson, but it was like, what has to happen for that to happen? And like, can you imagine a circumstance where it does?
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty imaginable circumstance that he would be starting in the first weekend of May, based on how the trajectory of just how Orioles seasons have gone recently. But the reality is also that they had about as many real starting pitchers as you could have entering the season.
Yeah, I don't know
who's good enough to pitch credibly for 30 turns in a major league rotation, who is signing up to be the 7th starter for the Baltimore Orioles in spring training. The answer is nobody. Nobody is going to do that.
Yeah. Their 7th, 8th, because their 6th starter was Dean Kramer to start the year.
Yeah, and then Zach Eflin gets wiped off the page 4 innings into his season, and that's an unfortunate thing that happened. And it also, he's out. So then you got your 5, and they've done 1 turn through with that group. Maybe 2, because I guess Dean Kramer's made 2 starts. You could say it was 2, but it's also okay if you get 1 good, 1 bad from Brandon Young when you're getting 3 good out of 4 in the other turns through the rotation. And this is not the fault of these pitchers who are filling in. Not to say that we're saying it's anybody's fault, but like this is about the group as a whole. It shouldn't matter if you're dipping into, if you're pulling up somebody from Norfolk to start a game at this point in the season when the other guys are supposed to be pitching better. And, everyone's ears perked up when Chris Bassett said they had their come to Jesus moment. I don't think it's super fair to, judge the merits of that on how, Brandon Young pitches 5 minutes later or Cade Povich pitches in Yankee Stadium. Like I don't think this is about the guys who need to pitch well, pitching well. And Shane Baz did his last time out. He's going to have the opportunity to do again. This is a very big moment coming for him tonight, but Kyle Bradish has not. And Trevor Rogers is back and be the good version of Trevor Rogers. There's no, even this past week, Craig Alvarez was talking about all the pitchers kind of dealing with the same thing, and he and his belief that it would still be a strength of the team once they figured it out. It kind of has to be. They need that. They need those guys to A, stay available, and B, help them win some games. It's really easy to win games when your starter goes deep and pitches well. It is really hard to win games when that doesn't happen because in the context of this team, there's not a ton else you can say we're definitely going to do this. You can't say we're going to catch the ball when it's hit to us. We can't say we're going to come up in big spots. They feel like they're okay offensively. It's not like great. There's nothing. I think they are too in flux at this point.
Yeah.
I think they're too in flux at this point.
Yeah.
But I think for this team to win games, they need to give themselves a chance to win games. And I think we're even seeing the difference between giving up 4 runs in 5 innings and 5 runs in 4 innings. Those are huge differences. Those are bigger differences than the numbers I just used would suggest. And I think we're seeing the impacts of that long term right now.
Yeah. Is it ideal that you have Brandon Young, Cade Povich, Trey Gibson all having starts? Those guys who started the season as your 7th, 8th, 9th starters?
Yeah.
No, but this isn't quite 2024 where you lose 2 guys to Tommy John early in the season. You have still gotten 6 starts from Shane Baz, going to be a 7th tonight. 7 starts from Kyle Bradish, 6 starts from Trevor Rogers, 6 starts from Chris Bassett. So those are your top 4 guys, and they have all made a lot of turns in the rotation so far, but the results have been bad. I mean, Shane Baz is a 4.50 ERA. Kyle Bradish is a 5.03 ERA. Trevor Rogers is a 4.75 ERA and is on the IL. And Chris Bassett has a 5.46 ERA. At what point do we get concerned? I know your concern meter was very, very low for the first several starts for one Kyle Bradish. Has it gone up at all?
It's gone up, but not like materially. I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to be materially. It's not materially up to me. I think I just have more faith in him when he's good and knowing kind of what that can be. And while it's hard to just find it, like when you're pitching every 5 days and dealing with, it can snowball in one direction, but the only thing, there's a very small, whatever it's going to be is going to be small and it's going to work. That's kind of my approach to that. It's like he's going to figure it out and it's going to be a flip switch, and we're going to know pretty early that starts the one we're going to, when it's August and we're searching back on like Baseball Reference this game log, like, oh, his ERA is whatever since May 12th. It's going to be because it's going to be so clear, and I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Okay. Let's talk about the defense because it plays a huge role in the failures of the pitching as well when you don't have good defense behind you, and the defense has been pretty bad. The second game of that Astros doubleheader that closed out the homestand for the Orioles was probably the nadir of the Orioles defense, and Craig Alvarez called it unacceptable. But it's not just that one game. They have then gone up to New York and played some pretty horrendous defense. Tyler O'Neill continues to bobble balls in right field. Kobe Mayo, whether he's at first base or third base, can't seem to field a ball. Weston Wilson was a butcher at third base yesterday in New York. Fundamentally, this is not a defensive thing, but fundamentally, they keep getting picked off on the bases. This team is not playing very fundamental defense. It's going to take a while, I guess, for Craig Alvarez, for a brand new manager, for a brand new coaching staff to take it, hold, and really instill the kind of stuff that they want to instill. You're not going to fix all of that in one spring training or in 1 month of baseball. But right now, their defense is killing them.
Yeah. And I think we're going to mark like in a couple weeks, like for Brandon Hyde firing, like it might just be the time to like stop talking, like comparing and making callbacks to last year. But this felt like something, as we're talking about whether he should keep his job and what was going on. Like this felt like his department. Playing well and doing the right things on the field felt like his department to me, and that was kind of a line I drew. It's like he didn't pick the players, but the players are doing what they're doing on the field under his direction. I think that has to remain true for Craig Alvarez and this staff. I also don't want to push back, but like what you're saying, like no one can come in and fix it. Spring training, like that's true and not true. Like I'm not like advocating for like a Buck Showalter or Buck Showalter like substance, but like you can bet pretty well that is the type of thing that you would have expected to happen if they hired that kind. Now, does that mean that it's like half these players aren't on the team because the baseline is like you need to be able to play defense, and we're going to have Paul Giannis be our backup infielder. We're going to have Paul Giannis in Kobe Mayo's spot because he could pick it, and it doesn't matter that he can't hit. Like, we're just going to do that. That is an avenue they could have gone down. It's obviously not the avenue they went down. All of this is to say that it feels like it's kind of snowballing. It feels like, and this is the challenge of the coaching staff. It's not like to get them better. It's to make them seem like they're not one play that doesn't go well away from it being a thing that they can't field the ball. To let them go play freely and not be out there hoping they don't screw up rather than just thinking they will. I think Kobe Mayo started the year playing really well, and he's clearly less sure of himself in the field than he was because of the things that have gone wrong. Is that coaching? Is that natural human behavior? Yes, it's all the things. It's already getting to the point where if this every time it happens, we're talking about it, where it's taken on too big of a life of its own. And like the only way to stop that is to catch the ball and throw to the right base and do the things you're supposed to do. But if that can't happen, it feels like the type of thing that not is going to like submarine the season, but it'll subsume it. It'll take over everything. It'll just be because you have a pitching staff that still largely pitch to contact. And if they can't do that, that's how like rifts develop. That's how like frustration boils over. That's how bad stuff happens. If you can't like reliably feel like if the ball gets hit to somebody, they're going to catch it. That's just not what you want.
Yeah.
And I truly wonder if like, I wonder what the way out is other than it's just getting better.
Well, I feel like the pitching has been mediocre. The offense has been mediocre. And so we look at the one aspect that's terrible, and it's the defense.
Yeah.
So we can say, all right, there are some good things to see with the pitching. There's some good things to see with the offense. It's not much good to see right now with the defense. There really isn't, other than, I don't know, Leody Taveras is fine in center. Blaze Alexander is pretty much good wherever you put him. Gunnar Henderson continues to make solid, pretty spectacular plays regularly at shortstop.
Pete Alonso at first.
Pete Alonso at first. Yeah, that has been the bright spot. But other than that, the defense has just been really bad. And for Kobe Mayo, it would be much more acceptable if he were hitting like he's supposed to be hitting. But right now he's hitting 165 with a 540 OPS. So if you're not even hitting, then it's hard to justify you being out there in the field for as many games as he has been so far this season. But that's the state right now of the Orioles roster. In terms of the offense, to pinpoint one issue, it's going to be another topic that we're going to keep talking about until they fix it, John. And that's going to be the Orioles' struggles against left-handed pitchers. The Orioles are now 0-7 when facing a left-handed starter. I think that might have gone to 0-8 yesterday, honestly. They're up there. They haven't won a game when they're facing a left-handed starter. A 694 OPS against lefties. That's 17th in baseball. O's right-handed hitters have a 687 OPS. That's 20th in baseball. Albie went with that all-righty lineup, giving Gunnar Henderson a day off. Didn't really work. Greg Alvarez has said the Orioles' failures are on him. He says he needs to do a better job leading them. He's talked about how talented the team is and why that coaching staff needs to get more out of them. Craig Alvarez, welcome to Brandon Hyde's world.
Yeah.
Welcome to Tony Mansolino's world. Like we have said for now 2.5 years that this team is too talented to be playing this way. And the more we say it, the less realistic it sounds, the more laughable it sounds, because at a certain point, you have to play up to your talent level. And if this is now 3 managers, and one was an interim manager in Tony Mansolino, Brandon Hyde got them playing really well in 2023, got them playing pretty well in 2024. 2025 was a disaster. And so far, 2026, they're 4 games under 500, not trending in the right direction. At some point, they may not be quite as talented as we thought they were.
Yeah. And I would just note that, like, as a team, they have a 691 OPS against lefties. They're like WRC plus is 96. They're better than they have been, and they just don't win those games. I think could be a matter of who they're facing, like these lefties. But it doesn't matter because nothing else is working out. I think, and we kind of hinted at this last week. When I say we, I mean I, but we talked about it, and I'll say it again, is I think as this team is searching for its strength, there just needs to be a period when it doesn't matter if it's a lefty or righty, and they just say, all right, let's get the guys who are, let's get our best players out there. Let's put our best foot forward as a team. Now, there's two different ways to go about that. It's like, who are the best 9 players in that moment? Like, who's hot? Let's ride some hot hands. Or like, is the view that the team's best foot forward is to be as smart and tactical and thoughtful about who plays when against whom and what positions they play as possible. I think there's a world where they think that's true. There's absolutely a world where they think that's true. And it's not working out. There's a lot of sameness to what's happening right now. And I think that it's an uncomfortable position to be in, and it was uncomfortable when they were like 3-3, and now, you know, a month later, it's still uncomfortable. It's like the only reason to say that things are going to be different, or I guess now turn around. I still don't think this is like a turnaround thing. The only reason to expect it to be different is because there's so much that is different. And I just wonder what it looks like. And that goes for everything. That's been the same thing for every, subhead of this rundown. It's like, I just wonder what getting better looks like. I
don't know. I don't know what it looks like. That's the hard part, is I have a really hard time seeing exactly what a turnaround, if you don't want to call it turnaround, I will, what a turnaround would look like, because they need a turnaround. I mean, right now, Pete Alonso is a 108 OPS plus. Gunnar has a 103 OPS plus. Remember, OPS plus is on where 100 is average, so Alonso would be 8% better than the average hitter. He needs to be better than that. Gunnar needs to be better than that. And then you have a list of guys that is below league average right now. Tyler O'Neill, 79 OPS plus. Dylan Beaver, 76. Kobe Mayo, 51. Colton Cowser, 41. Blaze Alexander, 35. You need all of those guys to be hitting better than they currently are. You could look at the horizon and say, well, Jackson Holiday and Jordan Westburg are going to come back. We don't know when they're going to come back. Jackson Holiday has to restart another rehab assignment in AAA. Jordan Westburg's still down in Florida. Last time we heard from Mike Elias. I wanted to come on this podcast, John, and talk about how Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basayo have been the best catching duo in baseball through the first month of the season. I want to talk about how Trey Gibson made it to the big leagues and pitched in Yankee Stadium and actually pitched okay. We can't talk about the good things if this team consistently does bad things.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've run into, period, is that, people just ask me like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. I think that there are things that are going better than you would have expected. And they're the types of things that should make this team better than they are. And
Leody Taveras?
Yeah. Well, Adley, I think
for sure.
I think you can say whatever growing pains, or like, it certainly didn't look over the first couple weeks of the season before Adley Rutschman got hurt that Samuel Basayo was going to be.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried he was going to need an option at some point.
I just think.
And he's looked very good.
Yeah, and I think that's like, there's enough real stuff that, like, I think you can kind of put it in the, like, okay, let's not worry about this, that all these other things that need to have happen would just be building on top of that. Whereas I don't think there was literally anything last year where you were like, this is going to be the starting point of this. Like, once X and Y turn around, like A and B already exist, and you can just like put that off to the side. Like, I think you can assume pretty well that, like, Adley Rutschman, whatever he's doing at the plate, whatever changes in mindset and approach to simplification that he went through works.
Yeah.
And that matters. I don't it just feels like there are a lot of gears that like I'm picturing like when you go to like a children's museum or like a play place and they have like those magnetic boards and like you could put the gears together and then like eventually you put them in the way that like you turn one and they all go.
Right.
They're not touching right now. They're not near each other.
One gear is yeah.
You're turning the thing and only the thing you're turning is going because there's like this over here on one side that doesn't make any sense. And this is like nothing is working. And the more that I come back to any kind of upside drivers for this team, it's that like everything works better because then nothing will have to be a ton better. If your starter pitches into the 6th inning and you're still in the game, you don't have to bring Albert Suarez into the game.
Yeah.
Like, so like, and you can't because he's not on the roster anymore for the time being, but like
DFA'd for the second time this
yeah,
season.
but Albert Suarez or his ilk, you can just bring in Rico Garcia to clean up the mess and then you go into the bullpen as it's been to be used. And in a game like that, all you need is a couple big hits and then those things feed on themselves. Like, but that doesn't mean anything and that doesn't do anything until it happens. And that's why when I wrote that this was the Orioles kind of needed the big boys to play like big boys, that was mostly like sentimental. That was mostly, and this is me in like the year of our Lord 2026. I feel like I've written like only about like vibes and like narrative, and I don't love it. It's not my favorite thing to do. I think I don't know if it's like a reaction to how everything has gone in the last couple of years or just a lack of underlying like, like there's nothing you can be like, oh, this should be better.
There's
like,
no reasonable explanation for this.
Yeah. But all this is to say that like if this team, and it's as simple as this, if this team had gone into New York and played well, it would have been like, oh, the Orioles. Mm-hmm. If Pete Alonso hits 3 bombs and the Orioles win a couple games and like Gunnar Henderson looks like the Gunnar Henderson that was going to tear the world on fire during the WBC and like, hey, Adley's back and oh, wow, Kyle Bradish and Shane Botts, like people would be talking about it. I just, as we're sitting here talking, I was listening to you and I saw on Twitter, like the fair territory or graphic with like teams that are losing ground and there's Pete Alonso. And it's like, all of a sudden the Orioles are one of those teams that's not doing well. And this weekend was an opportunity for that not to be the case.
Yep.
It doesn't matter over the course of, these are 4 of 162 and that's like trite and also not necessarily true. There are bigger games. They were 5 games behind the Yankees when the series started, and now there are a lot more games behind the Yankees. Like the Yankees are the team they are trying to catch in this division. And while it's true that I believe the first words out of my mouth were that all this says is they're not as good as the Yankees right now, that they're not going to be able to get these games back. And there's no clause. There's no like satisfactory second clause. Like, well, yeah, we're not as good as the Yankees, but we blah, blah, blah. So it's okay. There's no blah, blah, blah right now. It's all like, I don't know.
To me, it's not just that they're not as good. It's that they're getting bludgeoned in these games. I mean,
yesterday was a bludgeoning at the end.
It was, but they lost Friday 2-7. They lost Saturday 9-4, and they lost Sunday 11-3.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're even close and they're getting walked off in these games, and it's frustrating that they're right there and you could look down the pipe and say, all right, when the Yankees come to Camden Yards, maybe the Orioles are on the right side of these games. And maybe they are. I mean, they're 21% of the way now through the season. I feel the need to do a percentage calculator as the season goes along.
Thank you for doing that.
But they still have a lot of season to be played. At the same time, I'm waking up here on May 4th and thinking, is this team going to have to sell at the deadline again? And that just cannot happen on May 4th for us to be thinking that far down the line. But if they're 5 games under 500, if there are more than that under 500, you can't make a reasonable case to buy at the deadline just because you were buying during the offseason. And no, this team doesn't have the kind of trade pieces that last year's team did, but Trevor Rogers is going to be a free agent after this season. Ryan Mountcastle is going to be a free agent after this season. Leody Taveras is going to be a free agent after this season. Bullpen pieces will be. They're going to have pieces that they can sell.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can look that far down the line and say this team is going to be 4 games over 500 at that point. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and we see a huge turnaround from some of the guys that we've seen at the bottom of the roster. We have to see some massive turnarounds from guys like Mayo and Kauser and Alexander and Beavers and O'Neill. And we just have to see Alonso and Gunnar start being superstars again. And some of these pitchers pitching like the guys they're paid to be.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just let's see it happen. Let's see it happen. And that's why the pressure, like that's why the focus for me was on those guys at the top. Like you just go out there and win games like this. I think it's completely reasonable, and you've heard it from these guys and through spring training and the first month of the season, that it takes everybody and we're in this together and there's a lot of talent in this room. Like that's all well and good. But if I'm player number 1 on the depth chart and I'm the guy on the billboards and I'm the guy making the money and I'm the guy who's,
I'd put you on a billboard, John.
Thanks, Paul. That would be great if we were promoted like that. I'm not looking to the 13th hitter on the roster and being like, well, we're all in this together. It's like, no, this is, again, narrative nonsense and not real, other than the fact that it's happening and it's true. But like, you're going to Yankee Stadium, you're playing the first place Yankees. Like, this is not like, let's go do this together. It's like, yeah, let's all do it. But like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're a big team. I'm a big time player and we're going to go show it.
Yeah.
And that has not happened this weekend. That did not happen this weekend.
No. All right. Well, we'll look ahead on the other side of a quick break.
Toyota knows your day doesn't slow down, so your vehicle shouldn't either. From the efficient Corolla and always-ready Camry to the adventurous RAV4 and spacious Grand Highlander, plus many models available with all-wheel drive, Toyota builds a lineup that shows up for every kind of driver. And right now, great financing and lease options are available to qualified customers, making it a perfect time to find the one that fits you. Find a great deal today at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Actually, John, before we look ahead, I do want to get your thoughts on Trey Gibson, because you watched him pitch a lot in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
You saw him pitch pretty well, not get through 5 innings, but allow 3 earned runs. I think he's the first Orioles pitcher starting pitcher to ever make his debut at Yankee Stadium, which is so much to ask of a kid who is 23 years old, 24. And also, it just goes to show how much, why teams don't do that is because it is incredibly hard to do to go up there and do that, but also the kind of faith that they have in Trey Gibson. And he ended up pitching pretty darn well. What do you think of Trey Gibson's first start?
Yeah, I think you saw a lot of what you're going to see. I mean, it's a really good pitch mix. It's really, I don't think he's going to get flapped at all. I was actually watching on the pregame show. Our friend Annie from Masson did a sit down with him down in Norfolk a couple weeks ago, and that was pretty informative to hear him talking about like his pitches and his shapes. He's very
Annie Claff.
She's very he's very she's great, and he's very like thoughtful and analytic, and he's talking about like his movement profiles and stuff and why he throws pitch X, pitch Y. What you don't get in any level of the minors is like I just threw that curveball and it. I'm holding my glove up for, because I made one mistake. And I say this, and actually one of the times I saw him pitch, he gave up like 2 home runs on a death ball to the same guy. You don't know until you are doing it at Yankee Stadium, that there's, such a fine margin for error. So I think that he acquitted himself well. I think, again, not real. Spiritually, like, the fact that he went and like did this well and like held his own and didn't like and was a credit to himself and this operation is like good for everything down the line. I think there's, and as the person who wrote like when it's like Cade Povich and like Chase McDermott were like breaking through like how big of a moment it was for the org and the pitching program and all that stuff. Like that wasn't untrue. It was true. And it also, what are you learning and what are you like, what's your end game when the results and outcomes go the way that those did? Like, this is like a different era. I think these are I think this group, the 2023 pitching class that Trey Gibson is a part of, like he is the best of the bunch at the moment. And there's a lot riding on what's going on with them to make it so that like these types of pitching crises don't happen, I guess. That's not to say that they will be the solution, but they will be an answer to a problem if a problem like this ever arises. And I think it was good that it went well. They lost. It wasn't his fault that they lost. And if the Orioles need to keep him around and have him go another turn through the rotation, I don't think they think twice about that, honestly.
Yeah. That 2023 pitching class, again, we've said the names before, but Levi Wells was taken in that draft class. So was Braxton Bragg, who is still recovering from Tommy John surgery. So was Zach Fruit. So was Nestor Herman. So was Michael Ferret. So it's an important draft class to hit, to get some of those starting pitchers. It was the most I think we've ever seen Mike Elias invest in a draft class in starting pitchers. And then after that was when he took his highest drafted pitcher ever, a couple drafts after that. So
yeah, and those guys seem like they're doing well too.
Yeah. So it is important that guys like Trey Gibson come up and have success.
And I just need to say that, like, I have a couple like minor stories reported. I'm going to spend some time down at the affiliates this week, and like, it's not as if I don't have the bandwidth to like go and write them and like do these stories, but like, what's the part of this season, like the 2026 Baltimore Orioles season, where like the team is like basically like on a tightrope, and it's like, I would like to read about Ike Irish, and that's a completely reasonable thing for somebody to have written about him. Like, Arms on the Farm, JT Quinn. Like, anybody interested in that? I don't know. I am like, I want to do it, but like, I this happened last year too, and it's just like, all it took was a clearing event of them just like firing the manager and just being done.
Yeah.
For me to be like, okay, I guess I can go do this type of stuff, but I really don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I don't like, when is the time for this?
Yeah.
If anybody has any answers, I can direct you towards our editors.
Craig Alvarez said this is a time for the Orioles to figure out what kind of team they want to be, and they have an opportunity to do that. Series finale is today. They have 3 in Miami. I'll be down in Florida for that series, and then home against the A's and Yankees. So got some important baseball games to go to. I'll try to eat some kind of good food, a Cuban sandwich down in Miami. I probably won't get to experience much of the nightlife because it's 3 6 o'clock games.
Yeah, you're all right. You can get out.
Yeah,
if you want to, but you also might not want to.
I'll try to put my toes in the sand at some point.
You got to at least see the water.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like, rate, review, subscribe, write us a 5-star review, and I will read it out here on the show. Thanks so much for tuning in on Facebook, X, or YouTube if you are watching on those places or listening to it after the fact on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Subscribe to the banner, $1 for 6 months. John Meoli's newsletter, Inside the Dugout, keeping you up to date on everything Orioles. And so is Andy Kuska, writing great stories as well. And Kyle Goons writing some columns as well. For John Meoli, I'm Paul Mancano. We'll have another episode for you next